Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 coverage. Today we're going to be taking a look at some of the changes coming in Mortal Empires for the Greenskins and the Vampires, since last time we took a look at the Dwarfs and the Empire. So let's go ahead and go over some of the changes to Lords and Heroes items first off. So for the Orc War Boss, of course, in the last patch the Manticores were given poison attacks. So he does come with poison attacks if you put him up on the Manticore. In terms of items, he's carrying the Opal Amulet for plus 22% damage resistance and an activatable buff, which is very nice. It's a decent amount of resistance there. He's also got the Potion of Strength, which has been changed somewhat. It's plus 40% armor piercing and plus 40% weapon damage, which is excellent for him, considering he actually has very heavy weapon strength, even on foot. Let's have a look here. It's still, what, 450 weapon strength? So definitely decent there. On the boar, of course, gives him armor piercing. And up on the wyvern, of course, he has heavy armor piercing as well. So could potentially be useful there. For the Night Goblin Shaman, definitely want to go over a few things here. So Sneaky Stabbin', I don't remember exactly what the effects are before, but I think it's been detuned a little bit. Vindictive Glare, it's just a magic missile spell, pretty bog basic. Most magic missile spells aren't really worth taking, so I'd leave that one at home. Itchy Nuisance is still what you expect, minus 26 melee attack, minus 25% weapon damage, which is very nice, and a nice big area of effect. Gork'll Fix It is somewhat the same as it was before, minus 24% speed, charge bonus, and 18% charge bonus and 18% vigor. It can potentially be a very useful spell against heavy cavalry factions. We'll see. This is the one that's probably been the biggest change, though, is Night Shroud is now a stock ability. So similar to Skitterleap, when you cast this on a unit, it will actually gain stock, and it only gets spotted at a very, very close range. We'll take a look at a test of this in just a moment, but let's go on here. Of course, Curse of the Bad Moon is a vortex spell, which doesn't actually do that much damage. What it does do is imbue this nasty curse, which is minus 24% speed, minus 30 armor, which can be huge. You guys know I'm a big fan of armor debuffs, minus 26 melee attack as well. So it definitely can be very useful if you're able to get it on a nice concentrated blob of elite tier infantry, for example. If you're fighting up against the dwarfs or the high elves, another heavy armor faction, could potentially be useful. It is a bit of an expensive spell, and it doesn't always hit all the targets that you want it to, so it's a bit rough. But in terms of items, he's also got Scroll of Leeching and Wand of Jet. A Wand of Jet is a one-time use increase to power reserves and recharge rate, and of course Scroll of Leeching, we all know what that does. It is worth noting as well, Sneaky Stealin' has been changed, so it's still map-wide, and it still reduces enemy power recharge rate, but it only goes off when you're casting rather than just being a constant active buff, which is that's one change you'll note, is pretty much all the lore attributes are now activated on casting. Some of them before, for example, like Smoke and Mirrors, was an active constant buff, whereas now they all only activate when you're casting, so you need to cast a spell to gain the benefit of the lore attribute. So same here with Sneaky Stealin', so you can no longer just bring a cut down Goblin Shaman with just Sneaky Stealin' to steal away your opponent's magic. You actually do need to bring a spell with him, otherwise you're not going to get the benefit from it. For the Goblin Big Boss, who we all know and love, he can still come up on his spider. He's also got Slippery, which gives plus 27% melee defense. I don't remember if it did before, but 24% speed, so that's nice. In terms of his items, he's got Potion of Foolhardiness, which is great because goblins, of course, have relatively poor leadership, and he does have a decent charge bonus as well, so that 36% charge bonus could be nice there. He's also got Sword of Antiheroes, which is 20% armor piercing and weapon damage with a 36-second buff, which is decent. I mean, he doesn't have the biggest weapon strength anyway, but any buff he can get would definitely be helpful in helping to assassinate enemy characters. And for how cheap, I mean, even with this Sword of Antiheroes, if you cut Slippery, it's 657 for an assassin type hero is decent. He doesn't have a ton of utility, but that's all right. For the Lord of Big Waaaaagh here, for the Orc Shaman, for his items, he can now take the Skull Wand of Koloth, which is a self buff That gives him 26 melee attack plus 50% weapon damage, which is huge, and it also imbues his attacks with Discourage. So basically, anytime he hits someone, they'll gain, that minus 16 leadership, whoever he makes contact with. So could potentially be very useful. If you actually put the Shaman on a boar, he gains pretty nice armor-piercing weapon strength. 180 armor-piercing is decent. So, I guess this is only regular weapon damage rather than armor piercing, so it may actually be better to use it when he's on foot, because then it'll be applied to the 215 rather than the armor piercing. It's interesting. I'll have to test this out a little bit and kind of see what I think about it. The Discourage could potentially be nice, but it is a fairly expensive item. He's also got Scroll of Shielding for damage resistance. In terms of spell changes, Gaze of Mork's still the same. It's still worth leaving at home. Brain Burst is another one that is probably going to be left at home. Fists of Gork is one of the ones I wanted to cover most because it's huge for the Greenskins. It's absolutely huge. So it may look like it's been debuffed a little bit, but actually it's a major buff in my opinion. So it actually imbues magical damage, as you can see. So that's huge for the Greenskins. They used to struggle mightily with ethereal units and other units with high physical resistance because they just didn't have a lot of magic damage options. Now you throw this Fist of Gork. Not only does it give a nice bonus to melee attack and defense, which is always great, but it does give magical damage as well. So if you're fighting a unit of ethereal units, if you're fighting an ethereal lord, for example, with your lord, there's a lot of different situations. Let's say you're fighting, Phoenix Guard with your Black Orcs. You pop this on them, they're going to gain a nice boost to their stats, as well as cutting right through that physical resistance, which can be huge. It's absolutely huge. So I'm a huge fan of this change. I think that's going to be a really nice buff for the Greenskins and allow them to handle some situations where they previously would get wrecked, like Green Knight, other ethereal units, and so on. Headbutt is now aimable, but it's still pretty crap, so definitely leave that one at home. Irigo has been detuned along with Waaaaagh to be just plus 44 melee attack, so it used to be plus 52 or 54, I don't quite remember. I think it was 52 melee attack, but now it's just 44, which is a little bit less, but still, I mean, the point of diminishing returns, most of the time you weren't going to need that extra anyway, so that's okay. Foot of Gork is still what you would expect, very strong explosion spell, so that's pretty much it in terms of the changes for items and, so on. Definitely some nice buffs to the magic. We'll take a look at this stock spell here in a minute. In terms of other things to note here, Biggins have gone up in price considerably in terms of the Orc Biggins and the Savage Orc Biggins. Orc Biggins at 900 seems like a lot to me. I really don't see them trading cost effectively at that price point. I mean, I haven't done a ton of testing to see, but that just seems like a lot for this unit. Same thing with the Savage Orc Biggin. 1,000 for a unit with 0 armor. Granted, they do have 25% physical resistance and heavy weapon damage. 12 armor piercing is pretty good, and 8 bonus versus large is always nice, but I just don't see these guys trading effectively at that cost. So hopefully they'll get detuned in price a little bit with Mortal Empires, but if it were to be released in this state as it currently is, these guys would probably be a little bit overpriced, and that's going to be tough for the Greenskins to deal with. Savage Orc Boar Boys have gone down in price. That's one other thing to note. They might potentially be useful at this price point just because they have a 50 charge bonus. If you add the Frenzy on top of that and the physical resistance, they're probably quite a bit better than the regular Orc Boys. I do want to do some testing there, but not too much else to talk about in terms of the Greenskins. Of course, when Mortal Empires comes out, we'll take a look and see what else has been changed. One other thing I did want to mention here is Grimgor's Gitsnick now gives plus 26 melee attack. I can't remember if it did before, but hey, it's a decent. Plus 40% weapon damage as well is excellent. Plus 40% armor piercing, which of course Grimgor has heavy armor piercing damage, so that's very nice for him. He already has 70 melee attack as well, so giving him plus 26 is going to give him around 90 to 100 melee attack. That's insane, and he'll be making solid contact on almost anyone in the game with that high of melee attack, so very nice. Let's go ahead and have a look now at the vampires here. So for the generic Master Necromancer, his items, not too much, just the Wand of Jet and Scroll of Power. Kemmler, we won't take a look at. The Vampire Lord, he's got the Sword of Anti-Heroes and Charmed Shield, so a defensive buff and an offensive weapon damage buff. Vlad von Karstein has had his items changed, so the von Karstein ring is now an activatable ward save. Lasts 30 seconds. It only has one use, but it's 90% damage resistance. That's so powerful. Granted, 30 seconds, one-time use, you're going to have to definitely pick the right moment to use this in the battle. But considering how tanky Vlad is already, and if you bring the Blood Drinker, which is just a constant regeneration buff on himself, he's going to be super tanky. And if you try to goon him, he'll just be able to pop this Karstein ring. I'm really interested to see how this plays out. I haven't play tested with Vlad too much, but it's interesting. He also got this. I'm not sure if he had this before, but the Aura of Dark Grandeur. It's a constant -4 leadership around an area of effect, which is very nice. Let's see. Did Manfred also get that? No, he didn't. So interesting. Very interesting. Manfred hasn't seen any changes. But in terms of the hero selections, let's go ahead and pop some out here. The regular Necromancer gets a Forbidden Rod, which is a activatable recharge the Winds of Magic item. It does cause damage to himself, but I mean, it's just a Necromancer, so who really cares, right? It's also got a Scroll of Shielding. It's typical spells. None of these have really been changed too much, except that Winds of Death is, of course, aimable now, so you'll have to be very careful of that. Let's see, for the White King here, he's also got the sword, sorry, not the Sword of Antiheroes, he's got Scabberscrath, which is, I believe the Vampire Lord had this before, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but it's basically a cone attacks bound spell. Looks like it has 3 charges, and, you know, basically like Tyrion's Sunfang, but I'd imagine it's quite a bit less powerful. It's also got the Potion of Strength as well. For the Banshee, she's got the Screaming Banner, which is a really nice little leadership buff. The vampire units tend to generally have very poor leadership. Of course, they don't rout in the traditional sense, but you know, if you can force them into crumbling, you're basically getting free damage on them. So this +4 leadership, it could potentially help. It's not huge, but you know, every little bit that the vampires can stack up, it definitely helps. She's also got the Potion of Strength for some additional assassination power. And the Vampire Ladies, of course, all the wizards have had their scrolls stripped down greatly, so usually they just have one selection. But she's got the Sword of Antiheroes to make her a bit better of a duelist, as well as the Scroll of Leeching for pulling enemy recharge rate off. So that's very nice. There hasn't really been too much changes in terms of unit cost that I've really noticed. Most of the units seem to be pretty much the same. But yeah, just wanted to go over the items. Let's go ahead and take a look now at that stock spell from the goblins. So when me and Gobbo King were testing out some things the other day, he has used Skitter Leap in some of his battles and was telling me about it. And I've honestly never used Skitter Leap, so I didn't really know what to expect. But let's take a look here and see how effective the Night Shroud actually is at hiding a unit. So I've got Karl Franz and a whole bunch of handgunners, and Gobbo's brought an Arachnarok Spider, basically, because you can cast this on any unit, which is incredibly, incredibly powerful. I mean, granted, it's not completely game-breaking, but I can think of a lot of tactical uses for something like that, and we'll go ahead and have a look here and see exactly how close can you get before you get spotted. So that's what I mainly want to show off here. And of course, the whole idea of giving an Arachnarok Spider stock is just hilarious to me, because it's like you're hiding this giant spider, or like a giant, for example. Like, you could literally hide a giant with this spell, so it's going to be really good. Or like a war boss on a wyvern, especially against a heavy ranged faction like the Dawi or the Empire, the Dark Elves as well. I'd imagine it'll be pretty useful against them. If your Lord's getting shot at, and or you know, you have another high value large monstrous unit that's just getting shot to pieces, you know, you can potentially pop this spell on them, pull them back, or else pop this spell on them when they're marching forward. That way they won't take as much fire on the way in. So we'll go ahead and fast forward just slightly here. So you can see the spell's gone off now. So he did do the overcast version, which lasts quite a long time. But you can see the Arachnarok Spider actually has stock on its tooltip there. So it is actually hidden, unspottable. Yeah, that's interesting. I actually haven't seen this in a tooltip before. Unspottable. If this unit can hide, it will not be spotted until the enemy is very close. That's really interesting. So let's see how close they can actually get. So he's already well inside half range, I would say, of the handgunners, and still hasn't been spotted yet. He's going to come around here and maintaining a pretty good distance here, and it still hasn't been spotted. But considering how long this is lasting as well, I mean, it's still got at least half the buff left, so I mean, you can keep a unit hidden in stock for a very, very long time with this spell. And you can see, look at how close these guys are from my rear lines here, and they're still not spotted. Still not spotted. Still not spotted. Look at this. Look at how close this thing is to Karl Franz, and it's still not spotted. This is incredible. Very, very useful spell, and just barely there you see it getting spotted. So, and that's mostly because the yeah, it just got too close, but that's it's such a close spot distance, and for a large monstrous unit like this, like that basically negates, well, it doesn't completely negate, but like if you were playing an Empire player, for example, that had a heavy handgunner line and a cannon, you could pop this stock on there, and your Ragnarok Queen or Ragnarok Spider or Giant or whatever is going to get to the fight still very healthy. You can see once it does get spotted, you're still going to have to be careful. These handgunners are going to take this thing down in a big hurry now that it's been spotted, but you can see how close he was able to get with that. So if you're able to time that with the rest of your army, that you can, you know, really compromise their backline with light cavalry, or, you know, have some kind of distractionary force to pull away or otherwise prevent them from firing, then as soon as you get in there, I mean, I could think of a lot of tactical uses. Like I said, it's not going to be completely game-breaking by any means, but I can think of some really nice tactical uses of that spell in being able to hide. You know, let's say your lord's getting really low and it's just perpetually getting shot at by handgunners or cannons or whatever. You pop that stock spell on him, run him a little bit further away, and suddenly your opponent can't shoot at him anymore. They can't target him if they can't see him, so could potentially be very powerful. It'll require some finesse to use, I think, but I really, really like that spell. I'm definitely going to be giving that a try once Mortal Empires comes out and we can play a proper full goblin build. Definitely is going to be a good time. Maybe give Skarsnik stock and have him go in and assassinate an enemy character, or, you know, there's a lot of utility I can think of there. So hope you guys enjoyed watching this little discussion video. Get excited about Mortal Empires. I know I can't wait for it to come out personally. It's gonna really just set things off, and yeah, if you guys like this kind of content, like and subscribe. I'm keeping it coming with more Total War Warhammer 2 content every single day, so stay tuned for more, and we'll see you next time.